Cell structure and function. As you have previously learned, cells are the basic units of life. All living things are made up of cells. To help you better understand each part of the cell, we are going to create an analogy between a cell and a school. Cells are made up of organelles. Organelles are small, membrane-bound structures that each do a job to keep the cell working. A school has rooms that each do a job to keep the school working. At the center of the cell, there is an organelle called the nucleus. The nucleus runs the cell and controls all of the cell's activities. Inside the nucleus, you will find DNA and the nucleolus. We'll discuss those parts later. You can compare the nucleus of a cell to the main office at a school. The main office controls everything that goes on in the school. The main office contains all the rules that the school uses to operate. Inside the main office are the principal and assistant principal's offices. Inside the nucleus, there is DNA. DNA is the blueprint of life. It contains all the instructions for making proteins. Proteins serve many different jobs for the cell and the body to function. DNA can be compared to the student handbook. The rules are stored in this important document. Think about what would happen if there were no school rules. Nothing would ever get done and no learning would happen. Also inside the nucleus is the nucleolus. The nucleolus makes ribosomes. We can compare the nucleolus to the principal's office. The principal's office is at the center of the main office. The principal is responsible for training teachers and for making sure that the school is running smoothly. Ribosomes are tiny organelles made up of RNA and proteins. Ribosomes are made in the nucleolus and are responsible for protein synthesis, or making proteins. Ribosomes are either attached to the rough endoplasmic reticulum or are free-floating in the cytoplasm. Ribosomes are just like teachers. Teachers are responsible for making sure that students learn, just as the ribosomes are responsible of making sure proteins are made correctly. The endoplasmic reticulum, or ER for short, is an organelle where proteins are modified and lipids, or fats, are made. There are two types of ER, the rough ER and the smooth ER. The rough ER is lined with ribosomes, and the smooth ER is not. The rough ER is where proteins are modified, and the smooth ER is where lipids or fats are made. We can compare the ER to the classrooms of a school. There are many different types of classrooms, but we are going to focus on math classrooms and science classrooms. The rough ER are like the science classrooms because each science classroom has its own teacher. The rough ER is lined with ribosomes. Remember, ribosomes are teachers. The math classrooms do not have their own teachers. Therefore, the math classrooms are like the smooth ER. After the proteins and fats are made in the ER, they need to be sent out to the rest of the cell. This is the job of the Golgi apparatus. The Golgi apparatus receives the proteins and fats from the ER, packages them, and sends them around the cell. The Golgi apparatus are like the hallways in the school. The hallways have students, teachers, and other staff members walking around the school at all times. The hallways are the transport system of the school, just like the Golgi apparatus is the transport system of the cell. You may be wondering how the proteins and lipids make their way from the ER to the Golgi and then around the rest of the cell. This is where vesicles come in. Vesicles are small membrane-bound organelles that are responsible for transporting proteins and lipids from the ER to the Golgi apparatus and from the Golgi apparatus to other parts of the cell or to the outside of the cell. Vesicles are like students because students go to the classrooms and receive knowledge and go from classroom to classroom through the hallways, learning more and more every year. Eventually, the students are sent outside of the school to share their knowledge with the outside world. The mitochondria is the organelle that is responsible for making energy for the cell. The mitochondria is like the cafeteria in the school because the cafeteria provides food for the students, which therefore gives them energy. In order to have energy, students need more than just food. They also need oxygen. The oxygen or air in the school is like the cytoplasm of the cell. The cytoplasm is a jelly-like substance that surrounds all the organelles of the cell. Plant cells have chloroplasts. Animal cells do not have chloroplasts. Chloroplasts are organelles that are responsible for conducting photosynthesis. Photosynthesis is the process by which plants use the energy from the sunlight as well as carbon dioxide and water to make its own food. Chloroplasts can be compared to solar panels on a school. Solar panels are responsible for collecting UV light and turning it into electricity to power the school. Vacuoles are organelles that store water and food for later use. Vacuoles are like lockers because lockers provide storage for the school. The lysosome is an organelle which contains digestive enzymes that break down materials taken into the cell as well as waste products. After these waste products are digested, they are released from the cell through the cell membrane. The lysosomes are like the janitors in the school. They are responsible for cleaning the school and getting rid of waste. The cell membrane forms the outside barrier of the cell. The job of the cell membrane is to regulate what goes in and out of the cell. The cell membrane is like the brick walls and doors of the school. The walls form a barrier from the inside of the school to the outside of the school, and the doors let students and teachers in and out of the school. The cell wall is a protective barrier around the cell. Not all cells have a cell wall. Only plant cells and bacterial cells have cell walls. The cell wall can be compared to a fence around a school. Not all schools have fences, but fences form a protective barrier around the school. Thanks for watching. Now try to create your own analogy for the cell.